The Occoquan Radio Podcast is a private production and is not affiliated with the town of Occoquan. Opinions expressed on the podcast are solely those of its host and guests. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the September 21st, 2025 episode of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Ernie Porta, bringing you 10 to 15 minutes of irregular, unscheduled updates on things Occoquan and beyond. This episode will cover a few town updates. In our history segment, discuss the different names our community went by in its early days. In our Rumor Mill Shredder entry, discuss when we truly became the town of Occoquan, and close with upcoming activities in town. Make sure you don't miss an episode by searching for us on the podcasting app of your choice and hitting the subscribe button. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. Let me start by thanking everyone who participated in the Celebrate Occoquan fundraiser for the 501c3 organization Visit Occoquan last Monday at the Mill Street Draft Garden. Folks seemed to have a great time. The Mill Street Draft Garden was a great venue, and there was also a great deal of generosity from the crowd in both the silent and live auctions. Thank you again to everyone involved for a fun event. I also want to congratulate yet another set of winners from Occoquan in Inside Nova's Best of Prince William 2025 competition. Forever Young won as the Best Wellness Provider, and Krista Becca of Forever Young won as the Best Eyelashes, Eyebrows, Waxing Provider. Forever Young is located at 206 Mill Street. Congratulations, ladies, and thank you for being a part of our community. At its most recent meeting, the Town Council adopted an ordinance to consolidate the town's stormwater management program and erosion and sediment control programs, and also adopted a resolution of appreciation for Deputy Town Manager Matt Whitmoyer for his several years of dedicated service. Matt is moving out of the area and so will be leaving us shortly. Please join us in thanking Matt and wishing him the very best for the future. I also want to thank the volunteers who came together this past weekend for the town to remove invasive plants from public areas. And last, I want to thank VFW Post 7916 for holding their annual National POW MIA Recognition Day ceremony last Friday in Mamie Davis Park. In our history segment this episode, we'll address the question, what's in a name? Now, in the past, we've talked about differing interpretations of what the word Occoquan meant in the language of the pre-European inhabitants of the area, and we will no doubt address that again in the future. But that's not what I'm talking about today. Instead, we'll discuss what our community had been called in its early days after European colonists arrived. While once Europeans settled down at or near where we are today, the word Occoquan was always in the name. It was not always alone in the name. As some of you may recall, in 1736, the Virginia House of Burgesses authorized the establishment of a tobacco inspection warehouse on the south bank of the Occoquan River. This was an outgrowth of Virginia's Tobacco Inspection Act of 1730. Designed to curb the import and sale of substandard, unmarketable tobacco, the act required that all tobacco had to be shipped in hogsheads, cases, or casks after having passed inspection at one of the legally created inspection warehouses, of which 40 were designated in Virginia. The Occoquan River was not one of those original 40 locations, but in 1734 the House of Burgesses approved one on the north bank, and in 1731 on the south bank. The presence of the warehouse was the dominant feature of the initial community, so it should perhaps come as no surprise that as early as 1751, a land sale ad in Williamsburg's Virginia Gazette described a tract of land at issue as being, quote, about 6 miles from Occoquan Warehouse, end quote. Not the Occoquan Warehouse, or the Occoquan Warehouses, but, quote, Occoquan Warehouse, end quote. Now, perhaps this was nothing more than the advertiser trying to save money by printing fewer words. After all, later, after John Ballantyne had established his ironworks at the falls of the Occoquan, a Maryland Gazette notice in 1756 referenced his furnace, quote, at Occoquan, end quote. And a Pennsylvania Gazette piece in 1765 referenced a, quote, dwelling house on Occoquan Landing in the said town, end quote. But subsequent newspapers, advertisements, and notices used capitalized references that cited the area as, quote, Occoquan Forge or Occoquan Forges, end quote. As an example, in the Virginia Gazette of May 26, 1774, a James Lawson announces, quote, I intend for Britain in a few weeks, end quote. He dates his announcement, Occoquan Forge, May 10, 1774. By the late 1790s, the primary newspaper in our area at the time, the Alexandria Daily Advertiser, which regular listeners may remember went through various different naming conventions and is listed as the Alexandria Gazette in your typical internet search, published numerous articles, advertisements, notices, etc. about our community. But both the newspaper and residents advertising or writing about our community referred to it as, quote, Occoquan Mills, end quote, in seemingly obvious deference to what was then the dominating aspect of the grain mills that operated at what is now the northwestern end of town. On October 5th, 1803, Nathaniel Ellicott, James Campbell, and Luke Wheeler announced in the Alexandria Daily Advertiser the following, quote, Notice is hereby given that we intend to petition the next General Assembly of Virginia for a law to establish a town at the Occoquan Mills in the county of Prince William under certain regulations, end quote. The ad was signed Ellicott, Campbell, and Wheeler, Occoquan Mills, October 5, 1803. They followed up this announcement with a petition to the Virginia General Assembly, which read as follows, quote, To the Honorable Speaker and other members of the House of Delegates of the Commonwealth of Virginia. The petition of Nathaniel Ellicott, James Campbell, and Luke Wheeler respectfully showeth that they are seized in fee of a tract of land lying upon the Occoquan River in the county of Prince William at the place known by the name of the Occoquan Mills, containing something more than 31 acres, which they are desirous of having laid off into convenient lots and streets, and established as a town with the usual privileges annexed to towns, and particularly the prohibition of hogs and geese running at large therein, and on appointment of trustees to carry the law into effect with power to make such regulations as may from time to time be found necessary. They take the liberty of recommending as trustees James Keith, George Gilpin, Thomas T. Page, Edward Washington, and John Coffer. On any of them approved of by the Honorable House, with such others as may be judged proper to be added to them, and that the name of the town may be called Occoquan, a plat of the ground is hereunto annexed. Your petitioners pray the Honorable House to take the same into consideration and pass an act for the effecting the purposes aforesaid. Ellicott, Campbell, Wheeler, Occoquan Mills, 7th December, 1803. Less than a month later, on January 5th, 1804, the Virginia General Assembly adopted, quote, an act for establishing several towns, end quote. Section 1 read, quote, Be it enacted by the General Assembly that 31 acres of land, the property of Nathaniel Ellicott, James Campbell, and Luke Wheeler, at the Occoquan Mills, in the county of Prince William, so soon as the same shall be laid off into lots with convenient streets, shall be established a town by the name of Occoquan, and that James Keith, George Gilpin, Thomas T. Page, Edward Washington, and John Coffer shall be and are hereby appointed trustees thereof, end quote. And so our community became the town of Occoquan. I encourage everyone who is interested in learning more about Occoquan history to visit Occoquan's Millhouse Museum and consider joining the Occoquan Historical Society. You can find more information at www.occoquanhistoricalsociety.org. That's the intro sound for our Rumor Mill Shredder segment. This is where we pay homage to the fact that while for much of its history Occoquan was a prosperous mill town, the only mill in operation today is the rumor mill. Here we take on urban legends, myths, rumors, or other similar topics that need straightening out. This episode will drill down a little more into the date of the town's founding. We regularly give 1804 as the date the town was chartered, and as we just heard, it was on January 5th of that year that the General Assembly approved the establishment of the town, and thus you will see 1804 used as the town's charter year in numerous markers, publications, and the like. But some listeners may have noticed that the General Assembly enactment included the phrase, quote, so soon as the same shall be laid off into lots with convenient streets, shall be established a town by the name of Occoquan, end quote. Well, it turns out that the process of laying off into lots and streets took a while. In fact, it wasn't until December 31st of 1804 that the trustees of the town certified the laying out of the town, and then not until January 7th of 1805 that the plat was recorded with the Prince William County Court. So despite the numerous references to 1804, in a technical but very real sense, one could argue that the town was founded not in 1804, but in 1805. Now for upcoming events, or I should say this episode, upcoming event. This coming weekend, September 27th and 28th, is the Occoquan Fall Arts and Crafts Show. As many of you know, this is the town's biggest event of the year and typically kicks off what I sometimes refer to as the sprint to New Year's. For many businesses, this is the start of the season that makes them profitable, and for the town, the show is a significant source of revenue that helps us fund a variety of things without raising our tax rates. So I would like to encourage all of you to participate as much as you are able. Volunteers are critical to the show's success and have been generous with their time and support over the years. So if you have an interest in taking a volunteer shift, please know that it is much appreciated and it is a great way to see the show and give back to the community. Of course, we'd like to encourage as many of you as possible to attend the show and patronize vendors, including our own town businesses and restaurants, and encourage friends and relatives to do so as well. Thank you in advance. We hope you enjoy the show. For information on this and other events in Occoquan, go to www.visitoccoquanva.com/events. Again, that's www.visitoccoquanva.com/events. That brings us to the end of this episode of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. Make sure you don't miss an episode by searching for us on the podcasting app of your choice and hitting the subscribe button. I'm your host, Ernie Porta. Thank you for listening.